instantly came to me when you asked that question, what we need to be protected from, what immediately came to me is that what we need protection from is the idea that we cannot think for ourselves and that we cannot trust our own experience. That for me really encapsulates what we need protection from, because even for example, my area of passion, or what I'm very interested in, is the Vedic stories, the Puranic stories, and how the women are viewed, presented. What do we learn about these great goddesses, women? And if I'm not allowed to think for myself in those stories, if I'm not allowed to have my own experience of those stories, they're not going to speak to me. They're not going to come alive to me. And I may only be allowed to see it from, sort of the male point of view, which will be very different from the female point of view. And I really confronted that when I began this work of retelling the Ramayana, 10 plus years ago. It was very daunting because the Ramayana is, an epic piece of poetry, and it's a sacred story. And here's little me, what could I possibly do? But I really had to confront the fact that I had been imbibing through my whole life that this story belongs to the men. So when I began retelling it, it was all from Dashrath's point of view, Ram's point of view, Lakshman, Hanuman, Ravan. Even the villains have more of a point of view than, these virtuous, highly qualified, powerful women, So I had to really, really, it was a huge journey of just really going internal and then asking, wait, where are the women of this story? And it's so, emblematic of what's also happening in the movement. I love to share this fact that, Sita, who is the heroine of the story, scholars who have counted in Valmiki Ramayana, in the 24,000 verses of the Valmiki Ramayana, how many times does Sita appear in the text? It's less than 10%. And she is the heroine of the story. So, not to mention Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, all these, powerful, strong women that are the queens. So that really awakened me to the fact that even though this story has existed and come down to us through an ancient lineage, that lineage has unfortunately not included women. Women have not had the opportunity to infuse that story with their perspective. And so I really awakened to the fact that, wow, there is something really powerful that we need to contribute to this story. The women need to have a voice. I'm interested in their lives, and I see, take any man and any woman, and I look at their lives, and I can see that the woman has as much of a rich, imaginative, adventurous, and complete life as the man has. And so then I'm thinking, well, why isn't that reflected in these stories? Then I understand, well, that has been forgotten for different reasons, or that has been suppressed for different reasons. And so now, I'm part of this effort to kind of revive and bring back our female ancestors. And just on that point, because we again are in a movement that puts a lot of focus on Shastra. Is that in Shastra? Like, you can't just imagine things, just don't speculate and invent something new. And, you can only trust what's in Shastra. And again, bringing that back to, okay, but what resonates here? What is resonant with my experience? And so I really had to confront the fact that to know more about Sita, I can only access Sita's life, because there is so little about her. Again, in this huge epic, she's only, here. So there is so much about her that we just don't have access to. So the only way that I, as a woman, can access her is through prayer. And because I'm an author, I'm a writer, an artist, through opening my imagination to her, to this channel. Like, please help me channel your life to the best of my ability. Help me. I take what I know about you, and then what about this? What about this? What about what's missing? And then bringing that in. And then finally, just about Sita. So Princess Sita's life, I feel, is a perfect is a perfect case study, so to say, about protection, because when it works beautifully. You know, Sita, this princess, she was willing to leave every comfort, everything, walk into the forest barefoot, not knowing where she's going to sleep, where's her meals, no one's going to be combing her hair or dressing her up, or all the comforts she's used to, sheltered princess. She's willing to leave all of that because of the love and protection and shelter she feels from her husband. Ram's love was so perfect, so complete, sheltering her completely for 15 years. She wanted nothing else than to be with him. So, you know, there is something really beautiful, you know, a happy marriage. I think everyone, man and woman, would be happy in a happy marriage to be protected by each other. But then, you know, the Ramai and many of us don't acknowledge that it's actually a tragedy, because then when it doesn't work, when the woman is uprooted from that paradigm of being protected under her husband, then what happens? You know, and Sita's story is, once that happens, her life is shattered forever. You know, and she's the queen of that time. So we have to acknowledge that what happens, you know, the way the queen is treated, she's has the most power, the most status. So imagine if she's treated this way, then the other women in that time were treated far worse. So once her, you know, Radha was pointing out the sexual purity. So once her sexual purity was compromised, basically her life was over. You know, you know, she goes through the fire, so many things happen, but ultimately she is exiled, she's ostracized in the most vulnerable position. You know, she's pregnant, carrying children, and nevertheless she finds herself being in the most unprotected situation when she is in the most vulnerable state of being pregnant. So for me, it's really a case study, and we can really look at, okay, what happens, the flaws of a society where a woman's status and a woman's opportunities are based on her sexual purity, her chastity, her submission to a man. Because once that was compromised, then her whole life was shattered. And we don't want that. I don't want that for my daughter. I don't want that for anybody's daughter. I don't want that for any woman, that once, even in this situation, it's, you know, the poet makes it so clear that she was beyond any doubt. And like Rajavilasini points out, so often when a woman becomes a victim, the you know, she becomes blamed. Victim blaming is also you know, a huge force that we're trying to counteract. You know, so with Sita's story, we really see that, you know, it's not, this is not what we want to perpetuate. Again, you know, Maya Angelou's quote, this is what she lived, but we have to have the courage not to allow other women to have to live that. You know, we don't want this paradigm to be perpetuated. You know, for a woman, if her purity is compromised for any reason, that then she has to face fire. You know, and sadly, you know, I'll also point out that in India, bride burning is a phenomenon that you find only in that continent. And for me, that's like a clear parallel to Sita's story. I mean, bride burnings, there's 4,000 to 25,000 cases of men dousing their women in gasoline and setting them on fire. I mean, for whatever reason. So yeah, we need protection from the idea that we cannot look at these stories for ourselves. We need to be able to think for ourselves. We need to be allowed to have our own unique relationships with even these Vedic texts, so that we can really form opinions, form relationships that come from our heart directly to that personality. Say, you know, in my case, you know, I've been meditating on Sita for the past 10 plus years. So we need to be allowed to think for ourselves and to have our own opinions.
Thank you, Vrinda. That was so beautiful. I think what you said about in the beginning was so powerful, that we have to think for ourselves, because it's true. You know, our culture, that's not encouraged. We when we are becoming when we're showing initial interest in Krishna consciousness, we are encouraged so much to search and question and explore, and then we're meant to follow rank and file. It changes, and that reminder is so important, that we always have to think for ourselves and trust our instincts, which I think you wisely pointed out, that we doubt ourselves too much. I just want to ask our panelists if somebody would like to add something, please, to Vrinda's comments. A show of hand.
Well, I just want to thank Vrinda. I think that was beautiful that you shared. And I'm guessing many of the participants on the call may have learned some other aspects of Sita's life. And so I am grateful to you, appreciative of your sharing. Thank you very much.